it's Erica with Johns Creek and Alpharetta Counseling. We're here at the NEDA Walk supporting eating disorders and those with disordered eating. Let's talk to some people and share some hope.
You're enough, whether or not you believe it, just because you're a human being and you have worth. And it doesn't matter if you believe it or not, because that worth never goes away. You are not the exception. You do matter. Your brain is lying and it's stupid, but you are enough. We are all enough. We can do this.
Okay, so my name is Sarah Christina. I'm here at Georgia Atlanta NEDA Walk. And my story is when I was 12, I developed an eating disorder called anorexia nervosa. And it was just a really bad experience for me because eating disorders are not really fun. I ended up at Veritas in Sandy Springs, and I ended up with a wheelchair, a feeding tube, and then somehow, some way, God came to me and opened up my eyes and said, this is not a way of living. So I decided to eat again. I started to eat again, and I got my tube out slowly. I was able to get out of my wheelchair. I was able to walk around and be a normal human being. And I'm currently now 17. My birthday was 3 days ago, and I'm here. My inspiration word would be vulnerable, because when you're being vulnerable, you show emotion. Like, I can't really show that much emotion, but I still do when I'm vulnerable. And it just makes me feel really loved and really special when I do feel vulnerable. And I would just put a word of encouragement saying, you got this, don't worry, love yourself no matter what. Thank you guys.
So I've been coordinating this walk for 4 years, and you might be asking yourself why I've coordinated this walk for 4 years. So I'm going to tell you like a very brief story. I was a freshman in college, and I was sitting in a waiting room. It was ERC, Eating Recovery Centers of Carolinas. I'm not sure if you're familiar. I think they were just recently bought. But I was sitting in the waiting room, and I was staring at a water cooler because I was so fearful and nervous because I had just been diagnosed with an eating disorder. And starting treatment, they told me that I had to give up dance. I was on the dance team in college. I had to take some time away from my sorority, time away from college. And to me, I was like, wow, I really have to give all this stuff up to go into recovery. But as I started treatment, I realized that I'd already been giving up so much from my eating disorder, from like self-esteem to I couldn't even be present in the current moment. I couldn't enjoy what I was doing, couldn't enjoy dancing, I couldn't go out to eat with friends. So really my eating disorder had taken away so much from me. At the end of treatment, I realized that treatment was my strength. Going to treatment was my strength and the way to get into recovery. And it gave me back dance, which is something I've been doing since I was little. I loved it. It gave me back college. I was able to graduate. And it gave me back self-esteem and a love for myself and a love for my body. So treatment centers like the sponsors that we've got here today really are the core to helping us recover and stay in recovery, like outpatient providers like JCAC, seeing a therapist outside of treatment when you get out just to check in with yourself. Anyway, so I was able to graduate, and I'm a therapist with JCAC, and I really couldn't be happier to be in recovery and be at this point of my life. And the most important thing I learned from that experience was the people that stood behind me, my friends, family, and loved ones, like you all standing out here supporting someone, or you yourself going through your own journey. I think it's so important that you are all the hope that is for recovery. And I just really appreciate you all being here for the walk. And I think it's kind of important to hear the background of eating disorders, and kind of to spread awareness, you have to have education, right? So Mallory here is going to share her speech, and then I'll get back on, share some closing remarks, and we'll start the walk. But thank you all for being here.
My name is Mallory Callans, and I am a student at Mercer University. I'll be graduating next month with my master's in clinical mental health counseling. I want to start by thanking each and every one of you for being out here today to support and raise awareness for everyone who's been affected by eating disorders. As Lyla mentioned, it's a public health crisis, and the biggest part is raising awareness and making sure that everybody is educated and aware of what's going on. Also, as Lyla mentioned, according to the National Eating Disorder Association, 28.8 million Americans will suffer from an eating disorder at some point in their life, and that's a lot of people. It's also important to note that eating disorders are the second most deadly mental health disorder ever. That is why it's so important that we're all here raising awareness for this severe illness that impacts people from all walks of life. Eating disorders can affect people of all ages, genders, ethnicities, and sexualities. They are not a choice, and they can lead to severe damage, both emotionally and physically. It's also important to note that eating disorders can lead to damage of the cardiovascular system, gastrointestinal system, the brain, and more. Along with the physical damage, there's a huge emotional toll that eating disorders take. Recovering from an eating disorder requires a lot of vulnerability, strength, and bravery. It's not a linear process, and there's often so many setbacks along the way. Recovery is a lifelong journey for many survivors, but a life beyond eating disorders is worth every step of that journey. Beyond the difficulties that come with recovery itself, we live in a society that does not encourage life without eating disorders. There's a thin ideal culture that promotes diet culture and enforces the weight stigma. There's been a very large recent pushback to this ideal in the last few years especially, and even many celebrities have been speaking out against it. Even in just the last recent months, we've seen celebrities as Selena Gomez, Ed Sheeran, and Ariana Grande speaking out against this thin ideal. It's so important that we continue speaking out against this ideal in order to create change within our society. So what can we all do to help prevent eating disorders? Eating disorder prevention requires a systemic effort to change things in our society that promote, initiate, sustain, or intensify symptoms of eating disorders. While eating disorder risk factors can range from biological, psychological, and sociocultural factors, we know that those who suffer from negative body image and low self-esteem are at a high risk of developing an eating disorder. Systemic change starts at rejecting diet culture and breaking down the weight stigma at an individual level. Breaking down these stigmas is essential to creating safe spaces for those who are struggling to get the help and support that they need, especially those from marginalized communities. Part of rejecting diet culture is learning to live intuitively and to appreciate life beyond what our bodies look like or what we are eating. In conclusion, I want to thank everyone for being out here to support and raise awareness for those who have been affected by eating disorders. This is an extremely important cause to me as I've become more and more passionate about dismantling diet culture and breaking down the weight stigma. Aside from my own journey with all of this, I have seen the thin ideal culture affect many of my friends, family members, and even my clients. I hope to live in a world one day that is free from this culture that promotes eating disorder behaviors. As I mentioned earlier, eating disorder recovery is possible, and it's so worth it to live a healthy and fulfilling life. Thank you everyone for being here today.